Hi, everybody, and welcome to our 10th episode of the IWWOF Business Talks. If you're new to IWWOF, as a reminder, we are a community of women in Finland, born originally as a Facebook group in August 2019, and we are now more than 5,100 members. Our aim is to support ladies in Finland in their working journey. Now, more specifically about the IWWOF Talks Business With series. So this is an online webinar series where IWWOF is inviting some of the most exciting change leaders and thought provokers in Finland to tell stories about their very inspiring companies. And the aim is to broaden our community's horizons and give access to our community to these wonderful leaders from all these different companies. Today, we're very excited to welcome Phillips. And from Phillips, we have Kate Lessey, who is Customer Experience Manager, and Julia Enholm, who is a Lead Product Owner. And they are going to be telling us about positive changes. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks. Thanks to those of you who have joined. We're really happy to be included in this series and to be able to speak on behalf of Phillips. The topic that we landed on for today, we wanted to talk about driving positive change and share with you the experiences that we've had working in health tech with your community, and hopefully it inspires you to maybe consider moving in this direction in your own career, or borrowing from some of the examples and experiences that we share with you within your own organization to drive changes big and small. Next slide. Yeah, so who are we? So 4 of us are here. We'll all introduce ourselves. But we're all working together in Phillips, and the central mission that we have, that we share with our coworkers worldwide, is that there's always a way to make life better. And I think this fits really well with what we wanted to talk about today. Phillips is a technology company that cares about people. We listen, discover, challenge, and deliver meaningful innovation to people. If we zoom in a bit closer, so Phillips is the big company, and what we have here in our backyard here in Vantaa is a business group called Phillips Radiation Oncology. We call ourselves Radonc Helsinki. We're an R&D organization. We have a long legacy of MR and image-guided therapy research and development in Finland, so we've been around for a long time. And where the magic is are the people who work together. Many of us are based in Vantaa. They're just behind Flamingo, if you're familiar with the area, and we have about 120 persons working worldwide. We'll try to show you now a very short video that should give you in a nutshell what we are all working on achieving within our R&D organization.
Every year, 3 million patients are treated using radiotherapy. Meanwhile, radiotherapy processes are often fragmented and inefficient, and uncertainties along the way make it difficult to consistently provide accurate and timely treatment. At Phillips, we think that providing exceptional cancer care requires an integrated approach to tools, systems, and software. Having a strategic partner is vital to understanding the sources of uncertainty and addressing them, driving important changes and continuous improvement, and solving your challenges in radiation oncology. 27 years ago, we committed to improving radiation therapy. Now, we're proud to introduce our latest portfolio of dedicated radiotherapy solutions, which span across diagnostic imaging to therapy guidance and response assessment. Increase accuracy across imaging, planning, and treatment. Accelerate time to treatment. Maximize value of your investment. improve patient satisfaction. Together, we can simplify your workflow, making it faster and more precise from start to finish, so that you can be confident the treatment results you're delivering are consistently reliable. Join us for your next step on the confident path to treatment. Innovation and you, Phillips.
Okay, innovation and us. So
pretty important work. Congratulations, ladies, for working on those topics.
Yeah,
does more than catch errors.
if we we can now just say a few words. I think Julia and I will introduce ourselves a bit more thoroughly in our expert talks. So I'll hold off there. We're going to discuss these two topics. So we're going to talk about, I'd like to share a bit of my own experience, how I found myself in healthcare. And then Julia will shed some light on how she and others in our organization have driven positive change in a health tech organization, singling out one specific tool, so scaled agile methodologies.
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for joining and listening to our talk. My name is Julia. I'm the system engineering group leader and lead product owner at Phillips Radonk. And I've been a long time at Phillips working, so I'll present a little bit about my career and how I ended up in this position and what I learned during the way. And happy to share some thoughts about how we have been able to drive positive change, and also positive change, I would say, from a woman perspective. So I think there's positives in the people aspect of scaled agile way of working. Yeah.
Tina?
Yeah, hi everybody. Nice to join this talk. I'm Tina Lessey, program manager currently, working together with Julia, Kate, and Eva. It will be today mostly Julia and Kate who are speaking. I'm happy to join any conversations. Maybe just as a background to describe you a little bit why I ended up in the, or how has my career path at Phillips been, how I've ended up in health tech sector. So I am a physicist of training, but a physicist only because I've always wanted to work with, those machines that you should see on the left. So I've always been very interested in what happens in health tech field. And I joined 8 years ago at Phillips as a physicist. I've been mostly working on only one big product. You can see it actually on the left side of the slide. On the upper left figure, you can see how the machine looks in the development, in our development facilities, and on the lower left corner, you can actually see how it looks in a hospital. So this is basically our work is on the top left corner, and what it looks like in the hospitals is then on the lower left corner. When I started at Phillips, we had this. So when I started at Phillips, there was only a wooden mock-up of a totally new technology in our R&D lab available. So that was the starting point 8 years ago. Now I've been working together with many colleagues for 8 years, and the outcome of all of that hard work is that we have the machine in 22 hospitals. We're treating patients. At the moment, 2,000 patients have been treated with this novel technology that we have developed together with a different company. So it's a really, in my opinion, a really rewarding field to work in, because you can really see the impact of your work in these people's lives. So that's a bit of my background, and now I hand over to Eva. Maybe you can describe a bit of your background.
Yes. Hi, my name is Eva. I joined Phillips very recently, like just 3 weeks ago. And well, like before I was working at pharma industry, like clinical operations. So I'm fresh to this field, but I'm really like already 6 years in the healthcare technology area. And I would be happy also to discuss with my colleagues if you have questions. Thank you.
Great to have you on board, ladies. I think this is now than ever a very exciting topic to talk about. So wonderful to have you on the call.
Okay. Well, let's move to the next slide. I will share a bit. My goal was to talk about, so here's the video. We can skip now to the next slide. Yeah, how did I find myself in healthcare? It was an unexpected journey. I didn't expect to find myself here. I had done my master's degree at the University of Joensuu, and then continued south to work for the Finnish Sports Federation. I'm not sure if these pop up as you go along. Maybe not. Okay, doesn't matter. And in 2013, exactly, I joined Phillips. And now I am some years later serving as customer experience lead, and also just this year or last year started doing work in service design. So if we go to the next slide, yeah, I procrastinated heavily before preparing for this talk. And I think what freaked me out was that it was called an expert talk. And I don't really feel like an expert. I definitely identify more with this little me in the photo here with my dad. Someone who is still experimenting and learning and experiencing new things. And I think that's okay. So I'm here to speak up for persons who don't feel like they're an expert and still want to think about what strategies maybe help you move forward in your career, maybe even take a sidestep into a field that you feel drawn to, like healthcare, which is all about helping people. Yeah, I think what I'd like to do today is we have hardly any time, so I'm just going to zoom in really close. And if we look at that lump of dirt that my dad is holding in that photo from maybe circa 1981, we just zoom in there and let's just focus on a teeny tiny piece. Let's forget about the background. There's so many things. It might be overwhelming if you think of when you read the job descriptions, how can I maybe move into this new space without feeling like an expert? So I'll just give you one tool that you can borrow from if we move forward to the next slide. Yeah, so when I read this is actually the from the job description when I applied for Phillips, and two of pretty important things I really felt like I had very little experience in. So I had no medical background, and I really didn't feel like I had working experience with a serious customer relationship management platform. So what I suggest doing if you find yourself in this position, I suggest going back to this concept of a sandbox. So not being an expert, I needed to carve out a safe space where I could experiment, play around with the related concepts and technologies and tools, learn something, and then share what I've learned and how I went about doing that in the context of an interview. So if we go forward to the next slide, I'll just give you then, two examples. So the first sandbox that I had to build, I needed to build some kind of sandbox to where I felt like I could talk about the technologies that were in the focus at the time that I was applying for a job at Phillips. So I used Twitter as my sandbox, and I started a Twitter feed. It was called MR HIFU Advances. I really wish it was still there. I think I deleted it some time ago, so I couldn't go back in and see what all I had posted there. But pretty much I set up a number of Google alerts to get a sense of what are the ongoing discussions, what's current, what's state of the art around this technology that I would need to know more about if I'm going to be competitive for this position and actually get the job and do something in that role. So it was a really fun experiment. I got my feet wet and started interacting with people, unpacking articles, trying to figure out what is really interesting and novel about this technology. What do I think are the key benefits? What do I hear from clinical customers? And just try to connect the dots. It actually went so well that other entities in this space started following me and retweeting me. At one point, Phillips Nordic had retweeted some of the content that I pulled together, and it really made me feel like, hey, maybe I can be an expert here. So that's one example. The sandbox that you choose might be entirely different, but maybe this gives you some ideas for what you could do. The next thing I needed to do was the CRM platform. So if you go to the next slide.
Sorry, Kate, just to take before you move on to the Salesforce. So really for us to make the connection. So obviously we understand from like the childhood sandbox point of view, and then coming now to this one that you created. But did you see an example of this, or is it a tool that you learned in school, or how did you come to that? What was the trigger for using this methodology versus another?
So I don't know. Since going through these experiments and landing in an R&D organization, we do talk about sandboxes. I think from a very technical point of view, it's about having an intermediary space where you can accept software or code that might be malicious or cause damage. So I'm not drawn to that part. But I think inventing spaces where, I think for me, it comes from childhood, because I went to a very experimental school environment. And this method for me has always made me feel like I'm becoming more of an expert in myself and how I approach problems, how I like to solve problems, and also be able to, what I think you want to be able to do in a job interview, because the person hiring, they have a problem and it needs a human being to solve. And so they want to know, how could you plug yourself into the problems that I have? And those problems that they have today will be different tomorrow. So you really need to show your versatility and what you're capable of doing in any given situation. So illustrating these kinds of ways to go about problem solving, I think it also gives you a way to talk about the principles that drive your thinking and what maybe grounds your creativity. It was really helpful for me in the interview to talk about, what were the things that stood out to me as very beneficial in the technology, because I had been going through the literature and sort of experimenting with how do people talk about this, what resonates, what doesn't, what interests people.
I think it's very nice, and just I wanted to kind of reflect also as a learning for the audience live and also on YouTube, that from kind of a job application point of view, I think that's a very clever proposal and idea, because there is no way you'll tick all the boxes of any requirement on the job. And actually, you talk about yourself not being an expert. And I respect that, but that's also a trait that women have. We have two weaknesses when we apply to a job. We underestimate our capabilities, and we overestimate the expectation of the role to our capabilities. And I think that's two things that I'm learning from you to say it out loud, that you are an expert and you don't need to have all the box ticked. And in a way, what you're showing is that you're able to identify those areas of, let's say, missing points, but you are able to either tackle it or address it. And I think as women, we also need to be very aware of that you don't have to have 10 out of 10 criteria to quickly apply. So that was a good learning. Thanks for that.
I could have put this in the I'm not an applicant, I'm not competitive for this position.
Yes. And you would not have gotten the job.
I'm so happy I didn't. Yeah, I think there, out of, like 100 people. So you can do it. You just have to do what works for you. This, for me, the next example, I maybe will try to just gloss over this, but I also I didn't feel like I had a strong enough expertise in customer relationship management. But that turned out to be totally fine. Salesforce makes it really easy to test out trial version, and you can work with your own data, or you can use data that's available freely from other sources. And then what I did is I went actually to meet with a company in Ruoholahti, and I explained what kind of organizations I'm interested in, and thinking about what I basically consulted with them about how would you go about setting up this kinds of database system for a nonprofit organization. And they were really helpful. I sat there for maybe 2 hours and talked to these guys, and could soundboard my ideas and have a discussion with real experts, and then go into the interview with some context of what I believe and what direction I would go in if I had the chance to administer CRM system using Salesforce.
So you did all that in the span of reading the application, or in reading the advertisement, and having the interview. You did all of this.
Yeah, well, Phillips is a little bit slow, the hiring process.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many
thorough.
months were in between.
Yeah. So I think the job was advertised in July, and I was hired in October. So there was a little bit of time.
Okay.
And I think you of course you can shrink this to a smaller exercise, of course. But yeah, so, and then in the next slide, I tried to just further the discussion a bit further. So there are many different directions you can go. If you're interested in health tech, start looking at job postings, start building your backlog of possible sandboxes that you want to make for yourself. Here are just a few recommendations that come to my mind, just based on my experience. There are a lot of useful directions that you can go in. A lot of them apply to other fields as well, like customer experience. I wasn't an expert in the medical field. I don't have I'm not a doctor or working in healthcare, but we've all been patients. We've all had a loved one interact with the care system. We have staff experiences. So there's lots of things that you can borrow from your personal life and build around expertise in, and audition and show how you perform when given these kinds of challenges, and what direction would you go in, and why you're the best person to take on that role, even if your background is very different. So I, unlike Julia and Tina, I don't have a background in technology, but I think that's great in our working life that we have different perspectives, and you just have to turn up the volume on what it is that you bring, and maybe that will be your creativity or your ability to problem solve, or to take on new things that you're not an expert in, but you can be.
I like this so much. I have to just take a pause just for a quarter second, because product managing the backlog of your career, it's like you gotta write something about this. That's brilliant, because people don't think of the career modules like features, and we don't prioritize. And I think that's a very, very clever approach to kind of career design and building. So you might be onto some concept here that you might want to develop. So.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. So we're going to take it one step further. We'll go in more detail with Scaled Agile Framework, and we'll expand from just me to our organization. And Julia has had the perspective of leading that change within our organization. So I'll give the floor to you, Julia.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, so a bit shifting gears. So I also wanted to sort of start off with my own journey. So as said, I've been with Phillips basically my whole career. So I'm also, as Tina, a physicist from training, but I actually started already before graduating. I started at Phillips as a summer trainee. And maybe I haven't been as sort of planned in my career. I thought about that. I've been involved both in the what of doing R&D, but then also in the how. So when I started, I really started with actual development and how to develop an MR imaging device, and then going further into a different kind of treatment technologies. But at one point then we decided to start in the organization to start up with these agile techniques, of which Scrum is one of the techniques. So it's one of the basic techniques of doing agile, where you have a small team that tries to get some part of work done in a short period of time, and then learn and iterate and then continue developing that. And I was actually Scrum Master of one of the first Scrum teams we had in the organization. And I really immediately, when I read my first wiki page about Scrum, I said that this is what I want to do. This is really what this is the way we should be working. So it's a lot about people, about the expertise of people. It's about sort of taking down the hierarchies and really leveraging the expertise of each and every individual in an organization. And yeah, so that was really, for me, it was a big step sort of forward, because I understood that this is the way I want to work. And well, we continued. So we had, I then became lead Scrum Master as we grew with the Scrum way of working. And then at one point, then we decided to start this safe way of working. And then I had the honor of getting to use a lot of time to setting up that way of working. And then, so I spent then many years in this sort of more in this how domain than in the what domain, is setting up these ways of working. After that, when we actually started this safe, I had at the same time, of course, I had been a long time in the company and learning lots about the technology. And then I moved back to the what part and then became lead product owner and now recently system engineering group leader. So I've been sort of moving around, and I feel again that has for my part. So my career hasn't been sort of in different companies, but it's been really about maybe going very deep into the what and how of how to work in this field. So which has been super interesting and sort of some might ask that how can I stay for such a long time in the same company, but actually I've had the luxury of trying out so many different things, learning so much during this path. So
maybe a quick question. Was there any particular reason why you choose SAFE over any other agile methodology? Is it specific to healthcare, or was it more specific to Philips, or it was just more for this particular mission that you had in mind or vision that was the right methodology?
In practice, we did look into other methodologies, but maybe it was the one that had sort of the readiest template for. So it was sort of, existed a model that we could then use. And then at the same time, Philips is a huge company, and there were actually also safe sort of trainings being set up in different parts of Philips. So we could also then do trainings within Philips. So even though our version of SAFE is specific for our organization in Finland, there was opportunity to learn from other organizations within Philips who were also starting to use this SAFE model. So I think that was the main reason, really. And then it being sort of ready So still it made it easier to take something existing and then modifying it for us. But yeah, so this was sort of and then if I look at from the organization point of view, and thinking about this, what is the star? Northern Star has always been learning and not being sort of content with how things are. So always pushing, what can we do better? How can we improve our products? But how can we also improve how we do our products? The sort of humane aspect of doing development. So then I thought about also this, so this is a little bit also because there was a discussion about this kind of change management. So when you do changes in an organization, so how can you do it? And I really see that there's a good way, like how we did it naturally, that you start small and then you sort of grow and then you learn what during that road. So really in 2011 we started Scrum with 2 software teams and had so positive learnings from that experience. So then at some point we decided that we will actually move all our software teams to this Scrum way of working. And then based on that, we were sort of, the whole organization then felt that actually this is something we want to try. And the sort of positive thing was that we had in January, we had this kind of start of the year meeting where we were discussing that what are the improvements we want to drive in the organization. And it was all the sort of R&D, some kind of leaders or some people who had some kind of influence in the organization. And actually we had like this prioritized list, and to the top, to our then R&D managers' surprise, the most sort of the thing that got the most votes was moving into this kind of agile way in the whole organization.
I love so much this story. We share, let's say, a journey on that way that I've also in several companies of multinational and global size have been at the beginning of the seed planting, even before it became some kind of sprout to hopefully that tree. And I've had many different experiences, but what I'm very curious to hear is, because you tell that story from the kind of bottom up in a way, how teams felt the compelling need to kind of go agile and bring safe into their life. But did you feel there was also some kind of support from the leadership, or were you yourself selling your ideas there? So how did you bring about that change? Because it's not that simple, and I know the journey. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so yes, I've been very vocal on it all the time, because as said, when I first started to learn about these Scrum techniques and everything, then it really sort of opened my eyes to that how teamwork can be something really inspiring and just having goals. But then I think also just the sort of I mean, there were also things like just the estimation and the transparency, and then also seeing that the projects were more reliable timelines of projects, and these kinds of things showed also to the organization that there could be something. But then also one of my then boss, he was sort of said that, okay, let's do this properly, and he also then gave me time as one of the, so we had like 3 or 4 people in the core team really for setting up this way of working, and we got a lot of time to do it. So that was also one of the sort of positives there. Of course, I mean, it was more bottom up than top down. So in the beginning, we did have quite a lot of discussions, sometimes about priorities and about, how can the leadership support, and we did have like ups and downs there. But I mean, if we look now sort of with hindsight, where this is now, we're in our 6th year of working in this way, and we're not looking back. So I think that's at least a very positive sort of, I mean, I know some of these safe initiatives, they fail or decide
or
to.
actually they take 7 years. So here you are 7 years in and you get there. So I think that's a really, I would even emphasize that don't be too modest about your role in there. And also more importantly, kind of, I know the journey, I understand what it takes, and there is a celebration point that you can have. And maybe when the flowers do appear, but also as you see that now teams are pulling it in, that's a great journey. So
yeah,
on my behalf, congratulations.
we're getting to this 7-year like crisis as in marriages, but no, I mean it's also because the reason why it's like, for me it's like I'm always seeing that what is still missing there, so it's not yes.
I can relate so much, but you know what comes after? It's DevOps, and then they will tell you Agile is so ancient.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see what is next. But I mean, again, we're as we are in this health tech business, it means that we don't have like from one of the key points if you're in a completely software world is maybe to have product releases after each increment or after each sort of cycle. We're not maybe at that point because we have such a different kind of product and system, but I still think that lots of the value that we have been able to create are really these so-called software values, but which I see as very hard values in that we have transparency and trust, and people are empowered much more than before. And very important still that we have the aligned priorities and sort of working towards the same goal. Although there are, of course, tough discussions all the time when there is more work than there are people available, then you need those tough discussions, but still we always end up with aligned priorities, and that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. So bearing in mind kind of also the time and the journey, and I think what you both did that was great is that you kind of tell about your role, how you found your passion, how you kind of pursued it, and then kind of success kind of in a way is attracted by this part of understanding what you're good at. So maybe you can also emphasize on the advice to the ladies. And there was also a question from Maria on how, in a sense, what were the most difficult decisions you had to make in order to also maybe get management to buy in and make that change? Because I said you're telling a story and it's a beautiful one, but we know that it's a change journey, it's a painful and a difficult one. So maybe if you could tell a little bit about this, and if anyone wants to actually share, Tina or Kate, about your own journey, please feel free to do so.
Well, maybe from my point of view is that it's still twofold. So always wanting to improve and working a lot there, and sort of working together with people. So I think also there like connecting and sort of teaming up. But on the other hand, so I'm also quite vocal. So I'm not silent if I'm not content. So I also sometimes too straight. So I have to then go back and be a bit sort of apologetic sometimes, but still try to be super honest, with what do we want as an organization, and but still I feel and hope that it's always been with the sort of interest of people in mind. So for me, it's so important that people enjoy working. So that's sort of been for me a very heavy North Star, is that when I speak, it's rarely because I'm sort of wanting it for myself, but it's because I feel that, the organization needs these things. So.
Well, actually, on this topic, I think we could jump a couple of slides forwards actually to the change management part directly, if that's okay with you, because I think that's the part that is also interesting here for this audience, because it doesn't apply just for a methodology or a new tool or a new product or something, but just I think you have a couple of good advice on the general change management. So if that's okay for you to jump to that directly, also being a bit concerned of the time.
Yeah. So so this is just an example. So it's really like when you do change management. So one of the good parts I also want to emphasize. So absolutely, because I was not alone. We were a team, and another person was a very, very, very sort of heavy business kind of man, and he was very much about value and how can we be more efficient in our way of working. And this was one of the sort of, I think, a good balance is what I was always bringing in, like this team aspect, and he was always bringing in this business aspect. And we defined then, like, this slide is actually a copy of a slide that we had early on in our team before we had even started SAFE, because we started off by planning that we want to go for SAFE. So this was like a few months in, we made this sort of, why would we do it? So what is the aim? What is we want to achieve with this change? So I think that's super important to have the first, aligned purpose on why do we want to do this change. There is no reason to do change for change itself, but you want to have like a clear vision of what are the things you want to improve. So
and speaking of which, we have a question from the audience that how did you make the value created visible? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question was that how did you get recognition from the teamwork? Meaning that sometimes it can be so that only the upper managers are receiving the credit, whilst actually the whole team has been working. So maybe first, how did you show the value? And then how did you get the recognition for the team as the second one?
Well, the value was actually, it was a little bit difficult because of course it's difficult to show some value of something you haven't yet tried out, especially when it's a way of working. Then it's like you can't have any.
I think once the work was done is the question.
Yeah. But I mean, well, again, what we showed that the value of having started with Scrum. So it was like the value had been already proven in these few teams. And what we saw was that, okay, it helped for us for aligning of the work that were done in the Scrum team was actually much better prepared and planned. And those projects that were done by those teams were more on time, for example.
So you could compare. Yeah.
So that was also one aspect. And
I think,
yeah, go ahead, Kate.
I think also that because so many parts of this process are out in the open, you really see it firsthand. So you see the demonstrations, you see the system demos, you see the appreciation of others, the experts get to lead and present what they've done. We very rarely see, managers presenting the features and end products, which I think really helps. And you have been also very active in hard coding into the process that we ask for feedback with every increment, and people have a chance to comment on their way of working, and that does become some kind of benchmark metric. So I think that has been helpful to settle on certain scores that are valuable to our organization.
And then perhaps very briefly then on the second part, very briefly then about the second part, so getting the recognitions for the work of the team.
So I mean, did you mean so in general for all teams or for this change management? So
no, from the change management perspective. So again, the question from the chat is really related to the fact that maybe there's a certain tendencies for upper managers to receive credit. So was there anything special that you did for the rest of the full teams to get credit, or do you think this is most in the management?
Not to answer on behalf of the presenters, but I think Kate was explaining quite nicely how Scrumming actually demands the team to show the work accomplished, and in a sense managers have no say, so kind of the prioritization happens, but the team delivers. So I think that was actually a really good point that I captured as well, that in the agile world, you do make the team shine because they get to commit and they get to, that was an excellent illustration of the human side of Scrum and agility in general. So that was a great thing. I know, Caroline, you're particularly eager to have the slide 12 visible. So
yes, well, I think that we have to, unfortunately, move on as we are a bit off time.
So, I mean, the other part of it was, as again, you asked already earlier, why did we choose SAFE? It was one framework. This was the version of SAFE that was at that point. But anyway, what we did was actually we redrew it for ourselves. So we took the model, but then we left out the parts that felt that we don't need because it's quite complicated. We tried to make it a bit sort of easier, and then we made it our own. So this is also a picture from like just before we started of how did we plan out and really, and this I think also just planning out who is sort of doing what parts and really trying well in advance to think about the core parts of this model, and then that we have people who are then sort of taking the responsibility of those core parts. But I'll go still, so just, I mean, for change management in general, so I went through like all the old material from when we did this change. It's already a few years ago, so I sort of had to take a step back in history. But one really important thing, which I think we did quite well, was to involve and train everyone. So we had discussions with every team that was supposed to start working in this way. We had sort of many questions and they got to give feedback, and we changed our approach based on that feedback. So we did really do a lot of sort of trying to get everyone involved, and also to have a say in how this change then will affect their own way of working. And then share. I mean, just sending out emails. Where are we? Sending out, sort of having demos also about this change. So we did have demos about where are we in this team that is trying to push this change. And then maybe the final big change, of course, was not a small change, but we did start small. So it was the sort of seed that was started with the Scrum teams that then was iterated on. And also, especially, I think I was thinking that in the beginning we did have even more like these kind of different change teams and looking into how to change the way of working. And I want to also give credit to Tina, who is our current RTE and still is sort of every increment looking into how to improve our planning. And currently we have really nice way of planning of online with the COVID situation, and Tina's put a lot of effort there into doing that. But for change management, then, I mean, whatever business you're in, you'll always have some own flavor that then impacts on how you do stuff. So you just need to then take that into consideration. And then this transparency goes both ways. I think it's really important. I think there we've improved a lot in that, being transparent from teams to leaders. Where are we? How much work can we do? But also from leaders to teams, that what are the priorities? What are we looking at? What are the next steps we're taking as an organization? So I think again, there are like tough discussions, but I think we're really well off. Usually now when we have planning, we very rarely change any priorities or such. I mean, maybe sometimes people are a bit sort of disappointed that something doesn't get done because that was hoped for, but usually it's always sort of accepted, and then
it's part of the culture now. Excellent. Thank you so much, Julia, for giving us an insight on this agile journey. I'm going to give you 1 more minute, unfortunately, for this part, and then we need to move on to the recruitment corner.
So this was the last slide, just going back to the values and just reflecting back on these female aspects, that I think still that these individuals and interactions is the important part. And as we talked about teams, so also as anyone who sort of, I think this way of working allows all people to have a voice in the planning, in the what we're doing, in demonstrating what has been done and so on. And it also, of course, is then a value for women that it changes the hierarchy. It's not only the leaders that get to talk and decide. So
yes, and maybe for our audience, those who are not familiar, so the Agile Manifesto is not something that is particular to Phillips or even to Finland. This is something you can research from the internet. It's very interesting document, and a lot of presentations and TED Talks and other things about it. So definitely something that I encourage also everyone to go and have a look at if you're not familiar with it. It's a great place to start when thinking about going into an agile journey in terms of either learning or practicing.
Good summary. Thanks, Gao. I just learned what it was all over again.
Great. So how can we join your journey? If someone is interested online, being inspired by Kate, maybe, so someone who is not necessarily in the healthcare industry, but now realizes that it's possible to go in healthcare industry without having a medical degree, or someone who is like interested or passionate about Agile or wants to learn more about this and wants to join your great organization and all the beautiful things that you're doing, especially in the oncology department. So what are the opportunities in Phillips?
So we have regularly we have open positions. We actually share our premises with both the R&D organization and also the commercial side of Phillips for Nordics, the team that's based in Finland. So these are the positions that are open, and Phillips makes it really easy to follow career opportunities that are open on their webpage and also from LinkedIn. And yeah, so we have very different ends of the spectrum here: development engineer trainee, and at the same time, quality management system manager from Q&R, and then a few positions that are open on the commercial side around digital pathology, bid management, and our favorite MRI. So come join the team. It's a fantastic place to find yourself and your purpose and contribute. It's not just a job. It really is a calling, and you get to make a positive impact in people's lives. If not in Phillips, there are other great health tech companies that are based in Finland, which is really nice that we're able to shape the standard of care also here in our space. Yeah.
Wonderful. And would you say, Kate, that those positions in Finland, for instance, they usually require Finnish because we have quite international audience, or is it very international company with English as a primary language?
Yeah, so in the Nordics, it varies. I think also, well, one should look at the individual postings, yeah. Although in Nordics, we also speak English with each other. But for the Phillips Radiation Oncology group, we are speaking English, so most of those jobs would really require you to be able to work in English.
Wonderful.
That would be key. And Eva is our newest hire, so she knows more than any of us about this part. Welcome to the team. How was your?
Yes,
how did you find yourself at Phillips? Was it easy?
Yeah, I can share my journey. Well, I found the job offer on LinkedIn. So as Kate mentioned, Phillips is posting on LinkedIn. So it's, well, I would say just be interested in company, follow the career website or LinkedIn, because in Finland is very important. LinkedIn is very important if you don't know yet. And also it's very important to really, something what Kate did and also I was doing, really do the research about company and job itself and look what you have common things. I'm coming from pharma industry, so it's a bit different than medical devices, even is health area. But I was looking in common things which I have in my background with the job offer. So I think it's important. And also I'm learning Finnish, so I don't speak Finnish, so I work in English. But maybe it's helping, even I'm not native speaker, that I work in global teams already. Now will be 7 years. So yeah.
Yeah. Hey, right. I have to say that what a fabulous team you have kind of demonstrated, bringing the kind of long timer who've been there, the newcomers, and kind of everything in the middle. And I'm really excited. I have to say that I see this quality management system roles popping up every 2 weeks on my feeds for Phillips, and it's been very tempted to click apply, but I'm still giving it a try to my entrepreneur journey. But it's fabulous. And ladies, thank you for giving us a very good 360 view on individual journey. What is the company up to? How is R&D and digital evolving, and your own stories? It was really illustrative and wonderful to hear you. On my behalf, thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, ladies, and very good to have the spin from the positive change point of view. I think we tend to be so negative in our daily life that I like the theme of today, though treating different topics, was about positive change management, either in one's career or then in the organization itself. So thank you very much on behalf of IWWOF, and thank you to our audience for the great questions as well. So thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.